Welcome to another episode of the Free to Life podcast. And today we have a very interesting guest, um, a person named Eamon from the UK. And he has a very unique and interesting story. So we're very happy to hear his story and see what we can all relate to and what we can all learn from him as well. Because I think that all of us from the XJWs, we all come out with something to give back, something that we've learned that helped us recover. So we're definitely happy to have Eamon with us. And I guess we'll jump right into it. So and Eamon's from the UK, but I'll let you tell the audience your backstory on how did you become a Jehovah's Witness? How did Jehovah's Witnesses basically get into your life?
Well, hello, Quinn, and hello, Samantha. Thank you for inviting me on your channel. I'm the only member of my family that ever became one of Jehovah's Witnesses. My late mother grew up in the Roman Catholic Church, and she studied with Jehovah's Witnesses over about 4 decades, 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s. She never became a witness herself, but she witnessed to me. And as a teenager, she'd be telling me about God's kingdom, the paradise, Armageddon, etc., etc. And being an idealist by nature, it appealed to me, that one day we'd live on a paradise earth free from sickness, free from financial problems, etc. So the things that she taught me as a teenager really stayed with me. And then later in my 20s, at the age of 28, I was baptized as one of Jehovah's Witnesses. I was the only member of my family that ever joined the witnesses.
And
And how old did you? Go ahead. Go.
how did your family react, given they were Catholic, and Irish Catholics are quite famous for holding to their Catholicism? How did your family react?
Well, my late father was not pleased about it. Although I do remember him going to one meeting with me back in the 1990s because he just wanted to check these people out. I think my dad was always suspicious. I think he's passed that suspicion on to me, actually. But my dad went to one meeting and he wasn't overly impressed by what he saw, and he came back and blamed my late mother for getting me involved in this organisation, although she never became a witness herself. So, can I refer to the way my family treat me now regarding my
Oh,
association with the witnesses?
definitely. But let's just. I was going to say, before we go there, when you first entered the witnesses, what were maybe, or do you see any red flags? Like, when did you maybe start to maybe recognize that there was something not authentic with the religion?
Well, I did two spells of the witnesses. First time around, I was with them for 12 years. Then I was away for 16 years due to various calamities going on in my life. And then I went back for 3 years. The first time around, the first 12-year period, I didn't see anything to be suspicious of. It just seemed like a family of nice people that were going out into the community trying to help their neighbours. So I saw nothing wrong the first time around. Then I was away for 16 years for various reasons. But the second time I went back for 3 years, I went back in 2020. The alarm bells were ringing with me almost from day one because the religion seemed so highly controlled. And so I was with the witnesses the second time around for 3 years, and I finally disassociated last December because there were so many things that disturbed me, but it seemed very highly controlled, and it was very different from the first time around.
Yeah, I kind of remember just I kind of relate to that a little bit because I didn't get baptized. That was till 2012 when I was 32 years old. But I was in it when I was a child. And I remember it being very boring when I was a witness, when growing up, like as a witness child, but it didn't seem to be, I would say, as dark as it is now. Kind of like to your point that, you're saying when you were away for 16 years and when you came back, it was sort of like you could see more clearly something is seriously wrong. But I kind of noticed that too. It just seemed like it wasn't, it was always a corrupt organization, but I think that for some reason it's just becoming more obvious as time goes on that there's like more and more people are waking up. And for some reason, it seems like around 2020, a lot of people are waking up out of this religion. Like there's a mass exodus of JWs for some reason around this time period. I don't know. Um, But what was it? Just what were some of the things specifically, if you can recall, that really just stood out to you as like something is wrong? Like it's a high control group. It's too much control. Like, was there anything specific that jumped out at you when you really started to question things?
Before I touch on that, Quinn, I think the point you just made is very interesting. How a lot of people were waking up in 2020. Well, I was exactly the opposite. I was spiritually asleep because that's why I went back to the organisation,
Hmm.
because it was around the time of the lockdowns and coronavirus and everything else, and I was on my own. You know, we had 3 lockdowns in Britain, and all of the Bible verses were going through my head. You know, woe for the earth and for the sea, for the devil has come down to you in great anger. So I was exactly opposite to all those witnesses that were waking up. I was spiritually asleep, and I still believed it. So I went back to the organisation. But when I went back, there were certain things that disturbed me. The Watchtower study used to really bother me. They call it a Watchtower study, but it's not a study. It's just a repetition of what's in the paragraph. And the way my brain works is, you know, if, for example, there was a study, I don't know, about the Trinity or something like that, they'd ask a question on a certain paragraph, and then they get the members of the congregation to basically repeat what was in the paragraph. Well, my brain doesn't work like that. I would want to give an answer, you know, maybe something that I'd read in a newspaper or something I'd seen in a television documentary. So early on, when I went to the meetings, I would give an answer that was not mentioned in the paragraph, and I could see the irritation on the Watchtower study conductor's face. He used to get really annoyed with me because I would mention something that was not in the paragraph. So after a while, I thought to myself, well, I don't want to irritate the conductor. I might as well just stay silent. So I used to wait until the end of the study, you know, when they do the review box questions. And I thought, well, I'll let them ask the review box questions. And then there might be 2 or 3 minutes at the end where he might open up the study for general comments, and then I can give my answer. Well, that happened on a few occasions where I could give my answer that I'd seen in a television documentary or read in a newspaper. But in the end, the Watchtower study, I hate to use the word study because it wasn't a study, but the Watchtower study became so tightly controlled that I couldn't give the answer that I wanted. So in the end, I just didn't bother. So that was one of the red flags for me early on. The field service groups, 7 minutes. I don't know if maybe both of you remember 7-minute field service groups. I mean, I remember the field service groups in the past. Many of them were longer than the book study group that we used to have, because everyone would be laughing and joking and chatting after the field service group. And it used to take ages to get to the territory. But the field service groups were so highly controlled now. 7 minutes and you're literally out the door to get to the territory. That bothered me. And then you had, of course, the television screens in the Kingdom Hall with the broadcasts from America, the governing body, these, you know, apparently brothers of Christ instructing us. So it was a whole series of things that alarmed me. You know, there were a number of red flags. And then, of course, there were certain issues relating to how I was treated by the brothers in authority. So it was a whole series of red flags.
Yeah, it's interesting what you said too about the Watchtower study. That's a nice breakdown you gave, because I know like in America, I don't know if they did the same thing in the UK, but they would always call it the Watchtower discussion. So after the public talk, they would say, we invite everybody to stay for a Watchtower discussion. Um, or sometimes they would say study. I think it might depend on which brother's doing it. But there is a video on jw.org where they're inviting people from the public, and they'll say, yeah, we have a Watchtower discussion. So they sometimes call it a discussion, but it's not a discussion. Like you were saying, it's control. Like you raise your hand, but you have to basically say what's in the paragraph. And I know for brothers who have privileges, like when I was a ministerial servant, I would get counseled. So if you're an elder or servant, or maybe even a pioneer, if you go outside the paragraph and you say something that's off, they'll pull you aside and you'll get counseled for it. And then sometimes the watchtower conductor just won't ever call on you. So yeah, they keep that control. And yeah, you're right. It's not a study. It's to me just brainwashing. It's a brainwashing session. Um, and I do remember the thing with the field service where before the brothers who were leading the service groups, it wasn't that strict. But then they started saying 5 to 7 minutes, like only 5 to 7 minutes. You got to get out there in their territory. And I think that's just part of the slave training. Like they're just turning them into slaves more and more and more. And the only reason I think that they're going backwards and saying, "Oh, you don't have to count service time," is because now they're desperate and there's a lot of other stuff going on now. Um,
Yeah.
but Samantha, what do you think on some of those things we touched on?
I know for a fact that the not reporting service time is because of lawsuits. It's nothing to do with spiritual stuff. They were just pushed into a corner once again by lawsuits in, I think, in a couple of different countries, and interestingly enough, a long-standing one in Finland, which is where I'm from, led to that being a thing. I think a lot of things happened with COVID. So people either left or they came back in, because it was a crisis time, and it was a time period that none of us had lived through anything like that before. So I remember they reported very proudly, because I was still attending Zoom meetings for the first 6 months of lockdowns. Then I disassociated. I was attending Zoom meetings and they said very proudly, oh, the numbers have gone up of people joining. And I thought to myself, well, it's people who have left or have drifted away, panicking because something dramatic has happened in the world. So the JW teaching and conditioning of last day's Armageddon has kicked in. So they've kind of panicked and come back. But I think for a lot of witnesses, them being not having to do meetings and ministry all the time throughout the week, but having that distance, having a bit more time on their hands, being at home more, they started to think, what am I doing? What am I part of? Actually, I feel better now. I needed a rest. A lot of witnesses were so exhausted. They just needed a rest. When COVID happened, I was happy because all the full-time servants and pioneers were getting an enforced rest, and they were, most of them, on the brink of a burnout. So I think that's really interesting. And I think it's fascinating to hear you say that, Eamon, because it is the many, many changes they started to bring in that also made me suspicious. Because for so many decades growing up, it always seemed very solid. There was always the same things going on. And then they start to introduce these changes. And you're like, well, why? And you're so correct about the Watchtower study. And I remember thinking that, and I've sort of identified this, that if people had too much of a personality, essentially, if you have too much personality and you think for yourself and you answer outside of the Watchtower, outside of the material, actually use your brain, they don't like that. That is actively discouraged. Now, shouldn't that be a big, big red flag for anyone? When did God create us to all become robots? And it's quite sad to think that they're limiting the time for those field service meetings, because for a lot of the elderly ones during the week, they're a bit of a lifeline. It gets them out the house, it gets them to see the brothers and sisters. That's the only thing you're going to gain from the ministry, is being around other people. Basically, it's a social activity.
I mean, if I can just relate some funny aspects of the Zoom meetings, because again, this was all new to me, and I think, as you know, Samantha, I'm not great with technology. I've only just mastered the light switch, so I'm not good with technology. But when the Zoom meetings came along, it was all a bit of a shock to me, because we never had that first time around when I joined the organisation. And some of the brothers and sisters were telling me that when the Zoom meetings came along during all the various lockdowns, that they'd have the cameras switched off, and they'd be sitting there in their pajamas listening to the meeting with cup of tea, cup of coffee. And no one was any the wiser. And I remember on one occasion, I joined one of the Zoom meetings, and I'd injured my foot. I'd done something to my foot, and I was watching the Zoom meeting, and I had a bag of frozen peas on my foot while I was watching the meeting. And there's no way I would have been able to get away with that in normal circumstances. But I thought, what a blessing Zoom is, that I can sit here watching the meeting with a bag of frozen peas on my foot. So.
Yeah, just one thing personally that I appreciate in Zoom was being able to leave right after the meeting, because when the meeting ends, then they kind of make you feel like you have to go around and basically be fake to everybody. You have to always talk, and if you're a brother with privileges, you're supposed to have an example. So like, and then you got to deal with people you don't like sometimes. So I like the fact that after the Zoom meeting, I just push a button and I'm gone, just like that, like magic. And in a hall, you sometimes can't get out of the Kingdom Hall because you're expected to stay there 20 minutes after and socialize. So that was a nice touch too. But so when what was your leaving process? So what was it that finally got to the point where you said, you know what, I'm done? Like, did you end up writing a letter? I think you said you did disassociate.
Yeah, mine was a slightly unusual situation because I had been mistreated by the elders. I felt I was mistreated, and there was a number of things that really upset me. And I mean, we can touch on that if you want me to, but maybe we can do it another time.
Well, I
But
think that's a good point because a lot of people dealt with that, the mistreatment from appointed brothers, and what's really tough is that we're told, oh, they're appointed by Jehovah, so don't question them. Jehovah's using them. So I think a lot of people can relate to that mistreatment because if you believe in a religion, you're made to think, oh, Jehovah must be angry with me. Why is Jehovah treating me so bad? Why is Jehovah having his appointed brothers treat me like that? I mean, I know that's how I felt at times. But yeah, what was it? What was it that where you felt they were mistreating you?
well, there were a couple of things. I mean, I'm going to be 60 in July. You know, just which is only a matter of weeks away now. And my dream since I was a teenager was to meet a nice lady, fall in love, and get married. But sadly, that has not happened. I'm still single. And when I returned to the organisation, I told the body of elders that it was a source of great distress to me. That because I've never really had the circumstances because I've spent most of my life as a carer. I was a carer for 8 years to my mother when she was ill, and I was working full time. I had an alcoholic father. I had an alcoholic brother who tried to stab me to death on 2 occasions. So I've had a very difficult life. I've spent most of my life caring for other people. I've never really had the circumstances to have a proper relationship, but that's been my great dream since being a teenager, to meet the right lady, fall in love, and get married. And I told the elders that the singleness was very distressing to me. And I remember on one occasion that they were going through the Enjoy Life Forever book, and it came to the chapter where they were discussing singleness. And they had to get a reader for the paragraphs in the chapter. And of all the people in the congregation that could have done that reading, they chose me to do the reading, which in my view was deliberate. So I'm up on the platform, and they know how distressing singleness has been to me. I'm up on the platform reading these paragraphs about singleness, telling the congregation how wonderful it is to be single because you can devote your life to Jehovah and the organisation. And to use a phrase you've used, Quinn, you can give all this free labour to the organisation. Well, obviously, I didn't say that when I was reading, but isn't it wonderful to be single because you can devote your whole life to the Watchtower organisation? And I'm up on the platform reading these paragraphs, telling everyone how wonderful singleness is. And when that study was finished that night, I just went to my chair, picked up my coat, picked up my bag, and walked straight out the door. I was incredibly distressed by that. And it was done deliberately by the body of elders. And there was another occasion when I felt they humiliated me publicly as well, because I think I've spoken briefly to Samantha about this, because I've had to cope with transgender feelings at different points in my life. And there was a certain reading that came up in the school schedule where the Queen of Sheba was visiting King Solomon. And of all the people in the congregation that could have been chosen to do that reading, they chose me to do it. So I'm up on the platform doing the reading. And as I'm quite theatrical, I thought, well, okay, I don't feel comfortable doing this, but I'll go into full theatrical mode to do this. I did the reading. And again, when the meeting was over, I just picked up my bag, picked up my coat, and I just walked out of the hall. I felt humiliated. And that was done deliberately. I've got absolutely no doubt about that. And then I complained to the body of elders that, I felt I was being mistreated. That you know my situation, the subjects that are close to my heart. My background, that I'm an MTS graduate. I came within a hair's breadth of qualifying as an elder 20 years ago. And you're giving me these assignments. You're deliberately humiliating me. You're giving me assignments that could have been given to a 5-year-old. So I told the body of elders that I wanted to see the circuit overseer when he came to the congregation, that I wanted to complain to the circuit overseer. And amazingly, they gave me a talk on the midweek program 3 months ahead of time. Now, have you ever heard anyone been given an assignment 3 months ahead of time on the midweek program? Maybe a public talk, but not a midweek program. So I was given an assignment 3 months ahead of time to do a talk, which I did. So I only ever gave one talk in the congregation, a 5-minute talk. And again, I went into full theatrical mode when I was doing it. But it was a whole series of things that with the red flags that I mentioned earlier on, the way I was treated by the body of elders. And I think I've mentioned this to Samantha. I then, in the autumn of 2023 that's just gone, all of these things were really disturbing me about the organisation. This is not the organisation I joined back in the 1990s. And then I went online and I discovered the Australian Royal Commission. I discovered the Barbara Anderson story about the horrific child abuse cover-up. And I thought, I cannot believe that I've got myself caught up in a cult, because it was never like this the first time around. And then, I'm the oldest of three. My late brother's no longer around, but my sister's still around. So I remember last November calling my sister saying, I've got to see you. So my sister lives in southeast London, and I went to see my sister down at the Millennium Dome, and we were looking for somewhere to chat that day. We couldn't find anywhere to chat. It's like Satan was trying to prevent this conversation. There was a whole series of things went wrong that day, but I told my sister I've discovered all these things about the organisation that are so wrong, the way I've been mistreated. I'm not sure what to do. I'm having a bit of a crisis, but that took me forward to last December, just before Christmas, and I thought, I've had enough of this. And the day that I disassociated, which was December the 19th, one of the elders in my congregation sent out a WhatsApp message about a certain person in the congregation was disfellowshipped, and he was saying, this is how you should treat a disfellowshipped person. Well, that was the straw that broke the camel's back. I thought, well, I've discovered all these red flags. They've mistreated me. I'm going to go. So the day I read the WhatsApp, I was planning on disassociating on January the 1st in the new year, but this all happened on December the 19th. And I thought, no, I've just read the WhatsApp message. This is how you treat disfellowship people, which is just truly appalling. I'm going to disassociate. So I drafted a brief disassociation message on WhatsApp. I sent it to 6 of the elders and 4 of the ministerial servants that I no longer consider myself one of just Jehovah's Witnesses. And I was very specific in the way I worded the message, that I am disassociating myself from the JW organisation, Watchtower Society. I'm no longer one of Jehovah's Witnesses. I'd had enough, And then I think I told Samantha this a while ago. The day I disassociated, I could feel this like satanic presence, demonic presence in my flat. I was doing, crazy as it may seem, I was doing my laundry that day, and I tried to get the washing machine to work. And I'm not great with gadgets, and I was pressing every button on the washing machine. I couldn't get anything to work. So I went away, sent my disassociation message to the 6 elders, 4 ministerial servants. When I came back, the washing machine worked perfectly. So I just had enough. It was a whole accumulation of things. So I've been disassociated less than 6 months, but I'm glad I'm out. I'm really glad I'm out.
Samantha, did you want to jump in before I go? Because I have a bunch of stuff to say, but
I just think I think that day, when you described the day that it sort of all came together, and the months of discovering things that are increasingly disturbing, thinking this is not what I originally joined, it's changed, which is very interesting, because you're not the only one to say that. And then that day, everything sort of coming together, and almost like the energy around you feeling that darkness, that pressure, then doing the disassociation message, which you were very thorough with. I only sent it to 5 elders, I think. You did more. And I like the bit in the story that then your washing machine starts to work. It's almost as if everything around you was coming to that point, and then I think that very interesting. Whether you believe it's God or universe, something was telling you leave, and something was saying, phew, now you did it.
yeah, and I had an experience similar to that where when I wrote my disassociation letter, I had emailed it, but I didn't made a physical copy that I was gonna mail to the elders. So I made them wait last, and after I emailed it to people. But anyway, so the official one was the one that I was sending to the elders, like a hard copy in an envelope stamped, and that was the last letter I was sending out. So when I went to the mailbox, I went to the post office, and it was a holiday. I forgot it was a holiday because we lose track of holidays when you're JWs. So I went there. I'm like, oh, why are they closed? I'm like, oh, it's a holiday. So I was disappointed because I had my disassociation letter in an envelope, but I didn't have a stamp for it. And I was going to go into the post office and just have them do it, but they were closed. So I was very like annoyed because I really wanted to get this done. So so what happened was that as I was walking out, this other woman was coming to the post office just to put something in an outside drop box. So she said something to me like, "Oh, I forgot they're closed." Because I think she was going to the post office too and realized they were closed, so she was at the drop box. Yeah, it's a holiday. Yeah, I forgot. Um, and I'm like, "Yeah, I had to mail something." She's like, "Oh, do you need a stamp?" And she just happened to have a stamp on her. And so I put the stamp on the envelope. I put it in the mailbox, the drop box outside the post office. And I swear I'm not making this up. It was like the sun just got really bright for no reason, like bright, like I couldn't see, like almost like the heavens were open. It was just really bright, and it felt good. Like the sun generates vitamin D, so it feels good on your skin anyway. But it was like just this big warm light from the sun, and the woman that gave me the stamp was so nice, and it was like a wake up call because I'm like, she's not evil. She like, why is God gonna destroy her because she's not Jehovah's Witness? Like it was like an awakening of like, we've been taught that everybody is bad except us. Like we're the only special ones being saved. Everyone's bad association. This woman was just like, I can't explain it, but she was just so nice. And it was genuine. It wasn't because the Watchtower told her, "Oh, say hello to the person that walks into the Kingdom Hall," or show personal interest. Like she was just really, really nice, and the way the sun hit me, I felt that same thing. Like I felt like a curse was lifted, honestly. And I know it sounds foolish maybe to certain people, but it really was like something was lifted once I officially took that letter and put it in a mailbox. And that again, that's the official letter going to the elders, not that I sent out to other people. Yeah, it was like something lifted. But one thing I want to touch on too, Amen, that you said that I think is very important, a lot of people relate to, is how you were saying how you think or that they purposely put you in those positions, like having you read those assignments that they knew you struggled with. Elders do that stuff all the time, and I've seen it. And I know for a fact that when I was a ministerial servant, like working closely with the elders, I know that the talk or the coordinated body of elders, a lot of times they do assign certain people certain assignments. They do that on purpose. They will sometimes put people, they're supposed to put people on talks they think they'll do good at, but sometimes they do it just to be jerks. And they do the same thing sometimes out in field service. Like if they know two people don't like each other, they'll sometimes put them together on purpose. And they'll say, "Oh, it's to try to make you get along." No, it's just because they get off on stuff like that. They're on power trips. So if elders don't like you, yeah, they set you up. They do stuff like that to you. And I remember having it's going so far back I can't remember exactly what it was, but um more than once, I had an elder like giving like a talk and call me out, not by name, but just say something that I was working on or struggling with, and made me look stupid. I remember having that same feeling of just like right after the hall, just leaving and going home and feel like crying because you were humiliated. I think it was one time, the first time it happened to me, I think it was something with uh I didn't have a job and I was on unemployment, and I was being picky with work because the whole JW thing. And I remember certain elders just thought that like, "Oh, why can't you get a job?" Like it was maybe like a 6 month period I wasn't working, and one time this elder, when giving a talk on something, he threw something in there like that, like something about like um uh we can't be lazy as witnesses, and it was done in a way where I knew he was talking about me because they had already showed disdain towards me, feeling like, "Oh, I wasn't at this point in my life I wasn't working hard enough to get a job or something." But they do that stuff all the time, and I think what really hurts people and what hurt me is because I remember thinking like, why is Jehovah dealing with me so bad? Because it's coming from Jehovah, right? It's from the platform, so it's coming from Jehovah, and that really messes people up. But at the same time, I think that's what wakes people up. And it sounds like, Amen, that woke you up because you could realize this is not a loving God. God's not a jerk like that. This is coming from like somebody being a jerk. It's not the spirit of God. Um, but I know a lot of people can relate to what you're saying because yeah, they do that stuff all the time. They always play little games like that. And the funny thing too is that like going back to the Watchtower study, that elders can go off the paragraph all the time. They when they want to say something, they will just sometimes say something that has nothing to do with the Watchtower, and sometimes it's a poke towards another brother or sister, but they get away with it. You know, if you got the stripes, right, you got the status, the stats, you can do whatever you want. So Eamon, as we start to wrap this up, what were when you first left JW's, what was it like? Like, was it like you had nobody and it was kind of like scary, or did you were you able to find a network right away? Like, what was it like when you first left?
It was traumatic. It really was, because I disassociated on December the 19th, literally days before Christmas. So almost at the end of 2023, got into January. And I realized what I had to do very quickly was to find some kind of support, ex-JW support. And I was looking on Facebook one day, and Samantha had put a post on Facebook that there was an ex-JW support group that was meeting up in January. So I contacted Samantha. I think told her briefly what had happened to me, that I'd, only weeks before disassociated from the witnesses, and could I join her group, to meet some other ex-JW witnesses, ex-JW people. And that was in January. It was quite funny in a way, because we all met in a pub in Clapham in South London. And it was like my life was coming full circle, because when I went to secondary school, my secondary school was at Clapham Common back a long, long time ago. So, and Samantha was very kind to me. She welcomed me to the group. I could only stay a couple of hours that day because I had to go to work, and I think it was the same again the following month. I can't quite remember now, but I think there might have been another occasion. We met in a place in Waterloo, didn't we? And again, I had to go to work. I stayed a couple of hours, but it was just so great to be in a setting where there were other ex-witnesses that could relate to what I'd gone through. So I realised very quickly, I've got to find some kind of support, because I am traumatised and I'm still working through the trauma. And, obviously I've got to know the people in the group. I mean, Samantha is, I consider her our group leader in London. I mean, she's doing a wonderful job, bringing all these people together. And, she knows that each one of us is at different stages of trauma. I mean, I'm still working through the trauma. I mean, at one of our recent gatherings, I had a little bit of a meltdown at one of our recent gatherings. I was there for about 4 hours. I was planning on staying the whole night, but the depression just hit me really hard, and I just had to get up and leave to go home. But credit to Samantha for the work that she's doing, because she's, organising all of these events. She's helped me. She's helped a lot of other people in London. So I'm glad I'm out now. I have more of a social existence now since leaving the witnesses than I ever did with the witnesses. The 3 years that I was with the congregation the second time around, I only had one social invitation in the 3 years that I was there. I was excluded. I was, I mean, that's another story for another day, but I had one social invitation in the 3 years. And by that, I mean when I was actually in someone else's home. So I'm glad I'm out. I have a social existence now, which I never had before. And I'm gradually able to get back into some of the things that I love. And I think, as Samantha knows, that I've loved horses. I love horse racing since childhood. So I'm gradually getting back into that. I love the theatre. I just adore the theatre, films, music, things like that. And when you're a witness, you're so busy all the time that you can never pursue those interests. So I feel that little by little, I'm moving towards freedom. I'm not at the point where I would like to be with my life, but I'm certainly glad that I'm out of the organisation.
Samantha, I was going to say, yeah, Samantha, what would you like to add?
Well, thank you for all your kind words. I'm really happy because I've persisted with the monthly meetups. The idea, I have to credit Rodney Allgood from the US, a US coach, who realized very accurately that the only thing witnesses can really offer people is a degree of community. And when you leave, that's what you lose. So if we can create XJW communities where the advantage is, what people have, the place people have been, they don't have to explain everything. People are differently affected. I think everybody has got trauma. I had a slightly different experience as witnesses. I always had a social life. However, that caused its own problems. And what I'm really excited about with the meetups is we are now trying to cultivate a culture in the meetups where it doesn't matter where you're at, it doesn't matter what you're figuring out in terms of where you are now and what you want to do with your life. We're here to support you and love you unconditionally, because in the JW, it's always conditional love. Like with you, Eamon, you would have had so much to offer, and they could not see that because all they want is you to become really another robot that just parrots answers from the watchtower and doesn't step out of line or exhibit any personality. But individuals like you that have a lot more going for them, it's a round peg in a square hole. And I know, because I was a witness for so many decades, I know they don't like individuals like that. So people like yourself are gems, but witnesses will make you feel terrible about yourself because they do not see you as a gem and as a unique individual. They want you to fit in. And that's a big criticism, I would say, towards witnesses, that they really and truly do not allow people to flourish and grow, and they do not celebrate uniqueness at all.
Yeah, thank you for those very kind words, Samantha. Just touching briefly on what you said, one of the things I did like about the organisation the first time round was the Theocratic Ministry School Guidebook. Do you remember that, the little red, purpley coloured book? Because as far as I was concerned, it was an actor's handbook, and I've always loved acting and theatrical side of life. And my Theocratic Ministry School Guidebook was like a children's colouring book. I had so many points highlighted, I had so many points underlined. And then when I went back the second time, I noticed the organisation had got rid of it. And it's exactly why they got rid of it is what you just said, because they don't want people to show their individual personalities. They just want a collection of robots doing what the governing body instructs them to do. So that was one of the little points I noticed.
So I've got a question for you. I'm just going to jump in quickly. Sorry, Quinn. You mentioned that you've got your 60th birthday coming up, a big number. And I think I certainly have sensed with you that there's a feeling of things you feel you've missed out on in life due to circumstances, partly due to the JW indoctrination taking things away from you, possibly. I would like to ask you that, setting aside any concerns around how much time has passed and your age, put that aside. You've now got your future ahead of you. You've got those areas you're interested in. You're interested in horses, you're interested in theatre, you're interested in film and the arts. You've clearly got that creative side. What would you love to do?
I'd love to own a racehorse. I think my riding career ended on the beach at Brighton when I was 8 years of age. I fell off a donkey, so I was never going to be a jockey. But if I could, as you say, I shouldn't really say turn my life back, but if I could, I have got certain contacts within the world of horse racing, which I'm there gently pursuing. So it would be nice to own a horse. I've had the experience with my sister a few years ago of being part of a racing group that did own a winner. We went to a race course when one of our horses won, and myself and my sister went up to collect the winner's trophy, and we sort of joked with each other that my sister owned the left ear of the horse, I owned the right ear. So I would love to pursue my love of horse racing. The theatre I've always loved. I love, I went to the theatre as a teenager at school. I just loved it from day one. My favourite subject at school was English. I always loved English. I'm not so hot on the punctuation, but I love words. And I've often thought over the years about the theatre. You hear stories of, there's a big theatre show in the West End and the director calls in 50 actors for the lead role or 50 actresses for the lead role, and only one actor's going to get the part and only one actress is going to get the part. Well, I would love, if I had the financial resources, I would love to set up a theatre company when the 50 potential actors come and the 50 potential actresses come, that they all get the role, all of them, every single one, that they will all get an opportunity to play that lead role. And I hate seeing one person get a chance and then all the other people go away disappointed. I would love to do that. I love music. I don't know as much about music as you do. I know that's one of your great loves, but I love music as well. The arts I love. and I hope as time goes on that I can pursue that. But and I will open my heart. The great dream of my life, the great dream of my life is to find that special lady, whoever she is, wherever she is. I don't know who she is, but I hope when I pass 60 that somewhere along the line I will meet that special person, that I will finally find the love and companionship that I've been looking for my whole life. Because I have met some really nice ladies over the years. I've never really had the circumstances to have a proper relationship, but that is still my dream, that hopefully something will happen, that I will meet that right person. So maybe once I turn 60, who knows? So that's my dream.
And Eamon, could I give you some just a little bit of it I don't know if I want to say advice or more so like just something to explore. Um so I've been looking a little bit into like what people call the law of attraction, manifestation, and frequencies. And I know in religion, a lot of religion has told us, oh, stay away from that, it's demonic, it's from Satan, but some of it is scientific. But some of this stuff I'm working on myself, and I just want to share a little bit of something with you that might help you. I know it's helping me as I'm continuing to work it on myself. Is that when we're in a lack frequency, so say like if you're in the frequency of oh, I hope this person comes, which I understand exactly where you're coming from, but if you have more of the frequency of like you will find that person, you know you'll find that person, and you start to believe it, then you'll start to generate a frequency. And this is scientific. Some people call it like they'll talk about, having chemistry with certain people or you get certain vibes, but a lot of that is kind of saying the same thing. But we really do generate a frequency. So um if you're giving the frequency off of I hope I find a person, some ladies could look at that and the frequency you're giving them is like, oh, he can't find. So it's sort of like you're giving the frequency of something's wrong with him because he's hoping he can't find. But if you change your mindset, so if you have more of the confidence of, I will find somebody. I went through all this crap with JW stuff. I'm not brainwashed anymore. I can think for myself. I'm going to find the right person and I'm going to do what I got to do to get the right person. I'm going to work on myself. I'm going to do this. Then you'll give off that frequency. So then, like, just that confidence, women will be attracted to that confidence. And they'll see Eamon as, oh, look at him. He's doing things. He got out of JWs. Oh, he's got a dream to be a horse owner, and he got that horse, right? He said look, he did it. And I'm saying that too, so please don't think I'm thinking like I'm being judgmental. I'm saying it for myself.
Can I just share something with you,
Yeah.
Quinn? Because I worked for 22 years on London Underground, as Samantha knows. And when I was on London Underground, I used to wear an orange high-vis jacket. I left London Underground, which was the good job that I gave up for the witnesses, which I should never have given up. But there we go. But when I was on the Underground, I used to wear an orange high-vis jacket. I'm now a door supervisor in Covent Garden in London, and I wear a yellow high-vis jacket now. And the same thing is happening now that happened to me on the Underground, that I'm just standing there and women come up and talk to me all the time. It's not like I'm saying, would you like to come over and have a chat? I'm just standing there. And so I am meeting a lot of women as I did in the past. But, again, it's just hoping to meet the right one, someone that you're truly compatible with, And I think the advice that you've given me is very good advice. And I think I've probably got into the mindset where, there's a lot more to my story than we can discuss in this short period of time. There's a lot more to my story. But I think because there's been so many tragedies in my life that maybe I have got into that mindset. I hope, when I should really have the mindset, I will. So thank you for that very good advice.
And I'm only saying that too because I've had to learn that myself. And I could see how much my life has improved having that different mindset of just not being in that lack frequency, because we do generate a certain frequency even though we can't see it. So like, yeah, and that's why like sometimes people are attracted to confident people. Sometimes just somebody who's confident they might even be that attractive, but they'll have any woman they want because of their confidence, because they're giving off that frequency. So just something to keep in mind, because yeah, a lot of stuff that religion has told us is bad. It's they don't want us to find power within ourselves. You see, witnesses, they want you to be in that desperate situation. They want you to be like, well, you have to wait for the right sister to come along, or just wait for the new system. I've known people in the organization that literally they were really waiting for Armageddon. They were like, well, you know what? I'm just going to find the right person in the new system because they couldn't match their stats, their JW stats. So I'll wait. I'll find somebody in the new system. That's how JW wants it. They don't want us to find power within ourselves, but we're very, very powerful. And one thing Samantha said too about like just being your unique self and authentic is like we're all individual. Like it's like every snowflake. If you put a snowflake under a microscope, it has a different design. Like that's, I mean, it's crazy when you think about it. Every snowflake looks different under a microscope. No two snowflakes are exactly the same. We're much more than a snowflake. So all of us are, we're full of potential. We can accomplish anything we want. It's just we got to get this programming out of our head. And unfortunately, coming from the JWs, we've had some of the worst programming that exists, being in this part of this religion. But we can accomplish anything we want. And if you want a horse, have the mindset of you're going to get your horse, you're going to do this, you're going to do it, period. And you're going to find the right woman. And more so, you could even shift your thought of like, who do I want? Not even, oh, am I going to find who do I want? Do I want a person like this? Do I want like, and just, yeah. But it's a good mindset to be in.
If I can just comment briefly on what you just said, Quinn, it's very good advice because the witness organisation are so cruel regarding that because I can think of the sister that I studied with, special pioneer sister, and to the best of my knowledge, she's now in her 70s and she's still single. You know, and she's probably been told her whole life, you know, trust in Jehovah, you know, the right person will come along. And then they come out with that other phrase, you know, God will answer your prayer in the new world. And I think how cruel, how cruel. And then I think, you know, it's hard enough being a single man in the organization, but I think the single ladies have got it even worse because
oh yeah,
because they're told, okay, you can only marry a Jehovah's Witness. So they're looking at the men in the congregation. And then they're also, so obviously the field is narrowed to, I can only marry a Jehovah's Witness man. And then it's narrowed again. He has to be either an elder or a ministerial servant. So it's narrowed yet again. So maybe when the single ladies in the congregation are looking at the men, okay, there is a single elder, but he's 30 years older than me. Is that really a viable option? And the witness organization is so cruel to single people. They never do anything to help the single people. They won't let the single people use a dating app, even if there was a JW dating app that I could meet someone from a different circuit or a different congregation. Or why don't they organise social events for single people that they could meet someone from a different town or a different city? They do absolutely nothing for the single people. But the way I don't want to be negative because you've just raised everything to a positive level, but basically the witness organisation exploits everyone. You know, because it is a business. It's a property company. They're exploiting men. They're exploiting women. They're exploiting black people. They're exploiting white people. They're exploiting rich people. They're exploiting poor people. They exploit everyone, and it's just terrible the way they treat people. But I mean, the advice you give is very good. You know, I will. You know, and you know Can I just conclude with maybe my final thought?
Yeah, I just want to just touch
Yeah.
on one thing you said too. Is so like we've always been told that sister that goes off and marries an unbeliever, oh, she's spiritually weak, right? Because she just married an unbeliever. That's a strong woman. That's a strong-willed woman because I realize, you know what? That's a woman that says, no, I have needs. I want to find a guy I'm attracted to. I don't like none of these brothers. I'm going to find me someone. I'm going to find a man who I like. And they go and they do that. And we were told, oh, look how spiritually weak they're so weak. They went. And then they have these parts where they're always, oh, that's one thing too that a lot of elders of my congregation would do is they'd always make those pokes at the sisters that done that with the unbelieving husband. So they'll say things like from the platform about, Oh yeah, that's why it's important. You want to marry in the truth because you're gonna have all these problems. Like so, sisters that would do that, they would get attacked. They'd be looked at, oh, you're spiritually weak. You got a worldly husband, but they're strong. They're strong mentally people. What it is that the brainwashing is not that strong. They're gonna say, you know what, I'm gonna go find somebody to be happy with. I'm not gonna wait. Like you said, a woman's 70 years old. A woman's not gonna wait 70 years old, or at least a smart woman. No, I'm gonna go out and find somebody I like. Um, but that's what they want to do. They don't care about single people and like you said, they make no effort to make it easy for them. Why can't they use a JW app? You know what? You want to know why? Because it's not approved by the branch. That's why. Because the branch got to have control of all that stuff.
Yeah. I was
But
just
yeah,
thinking. I was just thinking about one of your videos, Quinn. You know, when you've been examining the basement video recently about all of the people locked up waiting for Armageddon, and there was a reference to Kevin who wised up at the end. So I'm not following this crowd. I'm going to go back to the world and carry on with my life. Well, hopefully Kevin met one of them nice single ladies out of the witness organisation, and she left as well, and say that Kevin's a rather nice chap, and I'll pair up with him. You know, so the wise people will wise up, because the Jehovah's Witness organisation is a cruel organisation that doesn't care about people's feelings or their needs, and it will limit your choices. The moment you join the witness organisation, you find your choices rapidly diminish. There's very little room for manoeuvre, and your life is hell on earth. It really is hell on earth. So, you know, if you can get out, get out.
and I just have to throw this one thing in there. Is that when you do things the JW way, it also comes uh like with how do I say it? Like it's not real love. It's like conditional. So say like I did all the right things. I had a pioneer wife. I was a ministerial servant, right? We quit, or she didn't quit, but I quit a high paying job to work for part time so I could pioneer. And then like when I left the organization, she left. So it's like it wasn't even a real marriage because it's like it comes with a condition. It's like, okay, you do things the JW way and you get the JW mate, but at the same time, it's like you have this legal agreement with Watchtower. Like, okay, here's your wife, but if you ever leave, you're gonna lose her too. So it's and in those situations, those women that went off and got husbands who they were attracted to, they're in a good situation because if they leave, they can't take their husband because he's not a witness. So they're smart. Those witnesses that said, screw this, I'm getting an unbelieving mate, they're smart and they're not going to lose their marriage if they ever walk away.
If I can just say something else on that, Quinn, you know the nonsense that the witness organisation teach, that, you know, like looking from the lady's perspective, you've got to marry a spiritual man, an elder, a minister, or servant. So we've got quite nice weather in England at the moment. I don't know what the weather's like where you are, but we've got quite nice weather here. So you can imagine on a sunny afternoon, the witness lady married to the witness man, and the witness man wants to stay home and read the insight volume when it's a lovely sunny day outside, when he can see God's creation in all his glory. Now, would you want to be married to a person like that? You know, that's the kind of nonsense that the witnesses are teaching the people in the organisation. As you said a moment ago, a lady or a man, you want to go out into the world, meet someone that you're attracted to, you like their personality, someone that you truly love. That's the way to do it, you know. And unfortunately, you can't do that within the witness organisation.
No,
Yeah.
it's scary to realize how fake it is. And I think also what the problem is, if you marry an elder or ministerial servant, you're actually marrying a man who's a sheep who just follows blindly the governing body and the guidelines they issue. You're not marrying somebody who has the ability to use their brain and think for themselves. So how good a head is he really going to make you? Because if there's a situation that arises in life that there isn't a Watchtower Article for, the whole JW thing crumbles. It only works within the sort of little bubble they create. And if everything stays within that bubble, if you're hit with any real life problems, that they don't have any, there's no substance to it. So I would say, whatever the age, reason, or circumstances somebody leaves, this is a huge opportunity to live an authentic life where you're true to yourself, true to values that you get to decide for yourself. And I think the key to kind of achieving what Quinn said, where you're putting out that kind of positivity that draws the right people to you, I think the key to it is to learn to love yourself and to love life and love your life. Don't love someone else's life. Don't love the life you're going to have in 10 years. Love already what you have now, with that kind of positive thinking that I am everything that I need to be. Because you know why? Because God doesn't create mistakes. He creates things perfectly. So we were completely lied to when we were told that we're imperfect. We're not. We are perfect. We might have a fallen, sinful state, but Jesus covered that. But when it comes to us, the way we're made, we are already perfect. And I think that's something really important to remember. I am already perfect as I am. And I just need to really be proud and step into everything God has put into me to just celebrate who I am and love myself and love my life and the life it's becoming.
Yeah, lovely words, lovely words.
And before we close out, Samantha, do you want to explain the picture that we'll put up at the end of the episode?
Quinn, do you want to explain it?
Okay. I was talking about the memorial picture.
Oh, because I
Yeah.
wasn't actually, I've forgotten because I was thinking more about what we've been talking about. Okay. So as Eamon explained, we met through the meetups that I organize. He's been a very regular attendee. And we've also talked about leaving and some of the things that we kind of share the views and observations on. And now I had not attended a witness memorial since I did the Zoom one in 2020. And Eamon asked me if I would attend one with him, just to go back and see if it really is as dark as we both feel it is, having sort of left and thought about the way they do it. And after a little deliberation, I thought, you know what, why not? Let's go back and experience it. Having been away, having stepped away, let's go experience it. And we've got pictorial evidence. We've got a picture, and it is not a deep fake, and it is not a fake picture. It has not gone through AI. We genuinely did go to a memorial, attended it, and we partook, which we're very proud of.
But wait, you can't do that. You're not anointed. You're not one of the governing body members. You're not one of the 144,000, right?
I was challenged. I was challenged by a sister who sat next to me and thought I might be a potential Bible study for her. I was challenged by her because I partook, and she said, "So you think you're going to heaven?" And I said to her, "I know I am. I know I'm going to heaven. I have no doubts." And it felt so good. And also being there, it was horrific. It was worse than I thought. It was, you know, we'll probably do a special. Do you know what we should do? We should record a special, release it before the next memorial on what that experience was like 5 years later, going to a memorial in person again. For me, it was a 5-year gap.
If I can just say something briefly, Quinn, as I say, I agree with Samantha. We can do a little video about the memorial another time, but I'm so used in my life to walking into the lion's den on my own. With many situations in my life, I've walked in on my own. And having met Samantha in January with the London meetup group, and then having watched her excellent video about the memorial, what's really going on with the memorial, it shook me to the core. I had no idea that I'd been involved in a satanic ritual for the last 30 years, and it shook me to the core. I think you watched the same video as well, didn't you, Quinn? But after I watching Samantha's excellent video, I said I've got to get my sister to watch this as well. So I went to her house. We sat down and watched it together, and my sister, her jaw dropped. She had no idea that, because she's been to the memorial with me many times. She's not a witness, but she's been to the memorial many times with me, and she was shocked that basically it was a satanic ritual. So we owe Samantha a great deal for producing that excellent video. So I'd made my mind up after watching that video. I was newly out of the JW organisation, but I'm going to go to the next memorial. Even if I have to go on my own, I'm going to walk into the lion's den. But before I did, I thought I would ask Samantha if she'd join me. And she very kindly said yes. So the two of us went to a Kingdom Hall in North London, and we both partook of the emblems because we both believe in Jesus Christ. And I must say to Samantha, it was an absolute honour to be in your company that night, because, I mean, you're further along the road spiritually than I am, because as far as I'm concerned, you're a spiritual giant, and it was just an absolute honour to be in your company. And, you know, it was a very strange experience for both of us being back in a Kingdom Hall, but we have the satisfaction of knowing that we did what was right in Jesus Christ's eyes, that we both partook of the emblems to show our faith in him. And but as I say, we can discuss that in more detail another time.
But Eamon, I have to correct you on something, because you know, women don't have any value, right? And they're like she's a woman, right? I mean, women just have the only thing that Samantha should be able to do is demonstrate a Bible study on a platform, right? It sounds
And
like you're saying that,
bake.
yeah.
That was always a popular one for sisters. You're expected to bake a cake for any event that comes up.
I'm going to have to politely disagree with you, Quinn. In the short time I've known Samantha, I've got the most enormous respect for her, and I know the other people in our London group have got the enormous respect for her. And she's very strong in her faith. She's further along the road than I am, because I'm still recovering from the trauma of being in the witnesses. But I just salute her for the hard work she's doing, you know, bringing the truth about Jesus Christ to people and helping the witnesses get out of this satanic organization. And can I salute you as well, Quinn, because you're doing an amazing job with the videos that you're doing, investigating, you know, the various, you know, broadcast items of the Watchtower organization and how satanic it is. So I salute both of you. You're doing a great job.
I appreciate it. And I just want to say too that it is amazing all the work that Samantha has done, because you know, we're always told as JWs, women really just need to support their husbands. Like, that's it, support your husbands. And if you're single, pioneer, and you know, you can do a demonstration Bible study. But one thing interesting too is that when I left JWs and I'm learning different things, even like when I talk about like law of attraction and manifestation, all that stuff, I've actually had like a woman teacher. Like, I actually had manifestation classes learning about the law of attraction, and I had a woman teacher. And I really, really appreciate women teachers, because we've been told this whole time that like it has to be men. Like, women just need to sit there and be quiet. So we're just so used to just men being up on a platform that, I'm sorry to say this, but I feel like a lot of women are smarter than men. Like,
yeah, I agree.
Women are very smart.
I agree.
And I think that
absolutely agree with that.
They don't also have ego problems like men either, which makes them better teachers. They're not trying to prove anything. But yeah, like Samantha has probably done so much more real work than any of the elders and your congregation. You know, the elders are just following a script from a satanic organization, basically. But yes, I think we need to appoint Samantha circuit overseer for London.
I would agree. I would agree.
Yeah,
and if I can say something as well, that I've only known Samantha since January. She's been so kind to me, and she sets such a fine example. She really does. And she's brave, she's kind, and she's compassionate, and that just comes across in her persona. So, you know, I've got nothing but praise for her.
So, Eamon, what would be the final thing maybe you'd want to say to give advice to say perhaps PMOs that are maybe watching this, that are thinking about leaving? Because that's how it starts. You know, people start to want to leave. They start to go on YouTube. YouTube is probably pretty much the number one spot that people go to before they actually leave. So for anyone that may be watching that's, you know, leaving JWs or about to leave, just what advice would you give to people coming out or thinking about coming out?
Well, the thing I would say is, don't give your life away free of charge. And the way I view my life now, maybe the same as the two of you do, I view it as a set of scales. You know, whatever time, energy, or money you invest in someone or something, make sure there is something on the other side of the scale balancing it out. Whatever you invest, there must be a return. And as all three of us know, we all spent a considerable amount of time with the Watchtower organisation. We gave large parts of our life, and we know that the Watchtower gave nothing back. So my advice to anyone listening to this: view your life as you would a set of scales. Whatever time, energy, or money you invest in someone or something, make sure on the other side of the scale there is a return.
Thank you for that advice, and we definitely appreciate you having on our podcast. And we still haven't been around that long, but we definitely would like to have you back at a later point. Um, and maybe go deeper into some of the things we didn't get to touch on. Um,
Yeah, I'll be happy to do
so
that.
Yeah, and Samantha, do you have any closing words before we close?
Just thank you for well, really, I've had so much praise in this particular episode. But I would say hopefully it inspires sisters that leave, that actually you've now got an opportunity to follow your heart and make a difference and do that in whatever area you feel drawn to, you know. I knew a young sister who was pioneering, but she loved children. And I said, why don't you do a childminding course or something or a foundation or, childcare course at college while you can get the free courses before you turn 18, 19? And she said, no, I must pioneer. It's a priority. And even as a witness, I thought to myself, but you love children. Surely there's a way for you to follow that, if that's where you're drawn to. It can't be that wrong to want to still do things. So we've gotten away from those restrictions, and I just hope everybody's inspired to really what is the phrase I like, that you basically find meaning in life. You find a meaning in what you're doing and in life, and that's going to really keep you going, inspire you. And can I just say, Eamon, thank you so much for coming on Free and Alive podcast. And can I just say that you leaving JW excites me, because you've got so much to offer. You've got so much potential. I, for one moment, don't doubt that you will basically make back for that lost time, energy, and effort. And when you were talking about those scales, well, I'm going to sound more like Quinn, but I do believe that there are universal laws. I believe God set them in place, and a lot of the new age things that people teach, you could find something in the Bible that would describe the same phenomena. And there is something about, if you are owed energetically, if you've put a lot out there and you've never got anything back, which is true for a lot of witnesses, I believe the minute you leave the organization, properly leave it behind, God or the universe, whoever you want to call, will make sure you start getting that back, because you're owed it. You are owed certain things, like you said, energy, money, time that you've expended. You are owed something back. You really are. And you just need to make sure you're following opportunities to get that back.
Yeah, very good advice.
And one thing too about those horses, I already named them. I already have the spot like where you're going to name them, and just start to already have that mindset like it's already done, and it will happen.
Yeah, I mean that's for another story, because I might send you a couple of videos, Quinn, because obviously both of us served as ministerial servants. I think both of us were on the verge of becoming elders, but we both managed to sidestep that, didn't we, for various reasons. But I know when I was delivering public talks, I learned how to deliver a public talk by watching horse racing, because basically it's about the 4 P's: pace, pitch, power, and pause. And to deliver an effective public talk, you have to assess the pace correctly. You have to vary the pace. And I could send you a couple of videos of 2 great jockeys that won the Epsom Derby here, and how they judged the pace in the race. They both judged the pace differently, but they both judged it correctly. And this, as Samantha said, I've moved into a new life now, and things can take a different course from now on.
Well, thank you again for joining us, and yeah, we'll be happy to have you back and have a follow-up to see where your life has gone now, and when you do get your horses and your ranch too. So we'll have you back to talk about that.
I look forward to it. Thank you very much.
So thank all of you in our audience for watching us, and we'll see you guys on the next episode.